Over and over again, the president said, listen, it's going to be reciprocal. So you do it, we do it. And that was going to be so good. And I really believed in it. And I feel like a sucker tonight because I am not a free trader and I do not believe in free trade. And I was just as tough, if not tougher than his people. But they screwed it up and they did it a totally ill-advised way. And I was very let down as someone who really, truly believes that free trade is awful for the American working person. This is what they came up with. Jeez, come on, have some gumption, have some math.
He has no idea.
Kramer.
I have talked to the heads of almost every single one of these firms in the last 72 hours, and he has no idea what it's like out there. None! And Bill Poole has no idea what it's like out there. My people have been in this game for 25 years, and they are losing their jobs, and these firms are going to go out of business, and he's nuts. They're nuts. They know nothing.
Kramer.
I have not seen it like this since I went 5 bid for 500,000 shares of Citigroup when I got hit in 1990. This is a different kind of market, and the Fed is asleep.
Okay, but here's the thing.
Bill Poole is a shame. He's shameful.
How is that going to impact our access to those things, Senator?
It's certainly going to have a negative impact shortly, but the reality is, Martha, this is because generations of us incentivizing companies to invest elsewhere. And that's exactly what the president is trying to do, is bring critical industries back to America. Because when we have our next national emergency, whether it's a world war or whether it's another pandemic, we have to be able to be self-sufficient to at least some degree in our economy. You know, a force field didn't magically drop over America and say you can't make cars here anymore. We incentivize companies to make cars elsewhere through our policies. And other countries attracted those industries, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's semiconductors, whether it's shipbuilding. We can't build ships anymore. China builds ships 230 times faster than we do.
To the global economy. And much of the world, well, they seem like they're ready to fight back. China is pushing America with a new round of steep tariffs on all goods, emphasis on all goods imported from the United States. France is urging the rest of the European Union to stop investing in America. And as for Canada, you know, our friendly neighbors to the north, they plan to respond with, quote, force. On Wall Street, the U.S. stock market suffered its worst week since the start of the pandemic during Donald Trump's first term. And since Trump took office in January, the S&P has fallen more than 15%. As for the president, well, he was very concerned about this. He left Washington on Thursday for a long weekend in Florida. And while the markets tumbled, the president was at his luxurious golf course. Look at that. It's not just the stocks, though, folks. Trump's tariffs could soon increase inflation, hurting working families the most. We're talking everything from microwaves to cars, and trucks will get more expensive. Not to mention the rising costs at the grocery store. Although the eggs are down, maybe that's because of the bird flu situation is coming under control.
Well, you know, I think you nailed it when you talked at the top about intentionally sort of setting the global economy on fire. It's part of the playbook. It's not just disruption at home, but abroad as well. And it is good to see, you know, our partners, as long as they remain our partners, saying, hey, you know, we're drawing the line in the sand here. Now, we'll see how much they back that up. But at least they're not, you know, bending over so many, from lawyers to others in this country have started to do.
We're going to talk a lot about what this means for American families, the way in which this is making our lives worse in so many ways. But I also have to say, I heard the new Canadian Prime Minister in a speech talk about how America is ceding the mantle of global economic leadership. And it really pained me, because this is a leader who on Monday, meaning Donald Trump, could wake up and change his mind. Right? He could willy-nilly decide, but we cannot get back the trust and the faith that has already been lost from our allies across the globe.
The people cannot get back the money that they've lost in their 401ks and their pensions because the market is going like this. Can I just note, I got an email from Steve this morning. Steve watches the show. We love Steve. And Steve just got back from a Viking cruise tour with he and his wife, and they did Southeast Asia. And they talked about the fact that their tour guide in Hanoi was telling them about the new Trump club coming, the golf course coming to Hanoi, Vietnam. And And he also read it in the local newspapers, and then obviously was very shocked to get home and see what was happening with the tariff situation and Vietnam. So I'm just saying, Steve had questions, emoluments. He was like, questions. Where's the oversight hearing? I'm like, Steve, you're asking the right questions. So joining us now, someone that can answer those questions, is Congressman Robert Garcia. He's a Democrat from California, and former Florida Congressman David Jolly. He is an MSNBC political analyst. Anybody want to answer Steve's question, right, Congressman?
I mean, look, I think, well, we should be very concerned about the tariffs and what's happening right now. This is the single most disruptive thing that Trump could do to the economy. This is the biggest tax increase that Americans are going to see in a generation. And what people need to understand is that the price of goods are going to go up. They may not see it immediately, but it's going to take over the next few weeks and months. There will be increases. People have been anticipating the tariffs. A lot of large retailers, grocery stores. They didn't anticipate how big it was going to be. And so now this is major disruption for America's ports, the supply chain, and small businesses that are dependent on imports and exports. This is incredibly damaging to the economy. And honestly, it's a slap in the face to the global marketplace and to all of our allies as well.
David, I'm going to play a little bit from Jerome Powell, who, in speaking at the Society for Advancing Business Editing and Writing, had this to say about what this moment is relative to higher inflation.
While uncertainty remains elevated, it is now becoming clear that tariff increases will be significantly larger than expected. And the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. While tariffs are highly likely to generate at least a temporary rise in inflation, it's also possible that the effects could be more persistent.
So the possible effects could be more persistent, and one of those effects, goes to what Simone and I and Alicia were talking about before, and that is, well, how the impact is on my 401k. I have a buddy of mine we kind of got this rolling track now since the Dow dropped the first time 900 points. And he lost $15,000. Well, he lost $17,000 yesterday. So he's down in his retirement $32,000 in 3 weeks. He's not getting that money back in another 3 weeks. How do you see the longer-term horizon relative to inflation, not just the tariff piece, but the domestic economy for families and communities that are going to have to struggle through higher prices, fewer resources available for retirement because it's just evaporating because Donald Trump doesn't give a damn about your money?
Yeah, Michael, let's start with a snapshot in time, a real statistic measurable by consumer confidence. Donald Trump has had a greater impact on economic uncertainty than COVID-19 did. Think about that. In a matter of 75 days, Donald Trump has proven worse than COVID for economic uncertainty. That's your buddy. That's families across the country. Those are consumers, low income, high income, wherever they are. And I think what's fascinating with this issue that we may not see with others in the same way, and I agree with Robert, there's a latency to this where it's going to get much worse, is, Donald Trump kind of mastered the low propensity, low information space, whether because his message was right or in this last election, he turned out new voters and got more new voters to turn in his direction. But it was a low information space that kind of ignored, as we know, Donald Trump does, the nuance of policymaking or the secondary or tertiary effect of promises that can't be kept. Donald Trump just says, hey, I'm going to fight for you. You're going to be better off, all these things. And it cracks through the low information space. A lot of issues don't, because federal policymaking is clunky, because there's latency, because maybe it doesn't impact people's home directly. This one does. Donald Trump is actually shattering the low propensity, low information space with all bad news. And it's economic anxiety. It is higher prices. It's why we see now Donald Trump being measured as being worse than COVID, because the low propensity space is saying, hold on, what just happened? And I think what Donald Trump is really missing here, we know he doesn't understand the economics. That is absolutely clear by his language and his behavior. But to Alicia's point about the world economy kind of moving on, I'm not sure Donald Trump realizes that the world economy may not need the United States of America in 2025. In the past, in trade wars, we were the heavyweight where maybe we knew we could win. I'm not sure we win this trade war. You're seeing other nations begin to align. Other nations begin to say, well, we will replace America as a trading partner with this other country, or we will create new regional trading agreements. There is a good possibility that Donald Trump just launched a trade war that doesn't just cool off, doesn't just return back to baseline, but a trade war that the United States loses. And it is because of his ignorance, but also because of his vanity that he's gotten us into this. I don't know how he gets us out of it, truly.
Let's talk about the ignorance and the vanity. While all of this is happening, Representative Garcia, you got the President of the United States busy golfing. And it's not just that he's golfing. That's fine. Everybody deserves a break. The problem is also that he's doing it on our dime. This is new reporting from the HuffPost. We, taxpayers, have been...
Okay, welcome to the aftermath of what was dubbed, was it Liquidation Day? Oh, sorry, Liberation Day. What might now be remembered as Meltdown Monday. We're just a few days post April the 2nd, and the economic landscape looks more like a battlefield than a victory parade. President Trump's tariffs have taken effect, and the results. Let's just say the stock markets are less bull and more bear. And we're not talking about a gentle teddy bear. It's a bit of a disaster out there. So, what's the fallout, okay? Stock markets across the globe have taken a nosedive, as if they're, sorry to sound frivolous, competing in an Olympic high dive competition, except there's no water in the pool. Meanwhile, in a move that actually feels like to me a chess grandmaster's check, China has, they clapped back with a reciprocal tariff of 34%. It's like every economics nightmare dressed up as a day trader. 34%. Right, let's break it down. Economics of trade wars for dummies. Okay? Tariffs might seem like a smart move to protect local industries, but here's the catch. They can lead to high prices for consumers and retaliatory actions from trade partners, and retaliation is exactly what we've got today. With China imposing a hefty 34% tariff in response to the US measures, the tit-for-tat strategy has escalated into what might be dubbed World War Fee. Let's start. In Europe, Trump's tariff strategy was about as welcome, as a skunk at a garden party. This is at the White House. The continent's already fragile economy is now bracing for further instability. Major industries, particularly automotive, pharmaceuticals, are on the front lines of this economic skirmish. They're kind of caught in a crossfire, escalating tariffs and slowed trade. It's really not good. It just is like. What about North America then? Canada and Mexico are reading too. These countries are, intrinsically linked to the US economy, and the unilateral tariffs slapped on their exports are slicing through sectors like a hot knife through butter. Can't think of a different description. Imagine automotive factories from Ontario to Oaxaca, pumping the brakes on production as costs skyrocket and demand plummets. And as for the global stage, this tariff war might seem like, a game of Monopoly, where everyone's trying to build hotels on Park Place, but in reality, it's more like everyone's landed on Boardwalk, equipped with a hotel, and there's no get out of jail free card in sight. Chaos. A mess. Now, as we watch this drama unfold, it's clear that in the game of tariffs, the house doesn't always win. In fact, to me, it seems like everyone loses. With markets tumbling and prices climbing, perhaps this episode of Trump's economic game show might just be too dramatic. Even those who thought they'd enjoy a front row seat, like his cabinet. Stay tuned, the economic ripple effects are just beginning. Unfortunately, we're all involved in the true cost of Liberation Day, which is still being tallied. I have no idea how much the final bill of liquidation is going to cost. One thing's for guaranteed, though, you're going to feel it in your wallet or wherever you keep your money.
So that's the message from the White House. Steve, what say you in this moment?
Well, I think it is very disruptive, and the administration admits as much. And this gets to two big things. One, as the vice president referred to it, they need massive deregulation. They need to get the Muscovites on steroids in terms of removing barriers to get things done. And the other thing is a huge message to Congress. The GOP needs to really substantially increase this tax cut. Now, they say these tariffs will bring in $600–800 billion of revenue. Use that as an offset for big rates cuts in tax rates, because the economy is going to need real tailwinds. And so what they're considering now is small. And the fact
I argue that it's not designed as economic policy. It's designed as political policy, because, you know, Donald Trump gets really excited when people have to come to him, petition the king for relief. That's what he's doing with law firms. That's what he's doing with universities. And I think that may be what he's doing with American businesses. It's true. He said these are permanent. He said, I'm going to cut a deal. But it stands to reason that what's going to happen here is every company and every industry is going to have to come to Donald Trump. They're going to make their case for sanctions relief. And in return, he's going to tell them the list of things they have to do for him: buy his crypto coin, tell their employees they can't work for the opposition. This is, in fact, why the Founding Fathers put the taxation power as well as spending power in the hands of Congress. We outsourced it to the president. And yes, it is completely within our power to grab it back. Hopefully Republicans, as they see this recession coming, may think twice and join with us. That the vast majority of Republicans, their number one priority is Trump seizing power and the Trump family and the MAGA universe holding power forever. Yeah. And if that's his goal, and if he's using the tariffs as a means to compel loyalty from industry and business, then you're not going to have a revolt from Republicans in Congress, because with the exception of maybe 20 Republicans in the Senate, the Republican Party inside Congress is done with democracy. All they care about is making sure that Democrats never, ever win another election. And this might be, you know, just an element of a broader policy to try to destroy dissent in this country.
Your point. It would be absurd and hilarious if it wasn't so scary, you know, in terms of how it actually manifests here. I mean, you know, I worked at the National Security Council for 2 years. You know, the National Security Council is supposed to be the best of the best. You know, it's supposed to be, you know, part and part a quarterback and a flight control in terms of everything that is happening in foreign policy. In fact, it used to be said that nothing could get to the president about foreign policy unless it went through the National Security Council, which clearly now is no longer the case, as apparently Laura Loomer has an ability to be able to get to the president about foreign policy. And that's just so alarming. And to the point that you had with your previous segment, if you want to know why there's so much chaos and confusion about what happened with regards to the tariffs, I can say it's because of the absolute dysfunction of this National Security Council, as demonstrated by what just happened with Laura Loomer.
Call this for what it is. This is a really bad idea. But Rachel, I mean, as you pointed out, I mean, this is not surprising, right? Here's a guy who told Americans to inject bleach into their bodies, who sent a mob to Capitol Hill. And now I think it's fair to say that he stands out as single-handedly destroying more wealth with his bad decisions than anybody else that has ever lived on this planet. I can't think of another person. In a couple days, he has eliminated trillions of dollars. These are in people's 401ks. And this results and folks will lose their jobs because of this. Companies will have to restructure. People will be out of work. They're not going to be able to put food on the table. They're going to lose their homes. All because Donald Trump, as you pointed out, is listening to an economist that doesn't even exist, that Peter Navarro actually made up. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I've been looking for a real economist that says this is a good idea. I can't find one. The only people that say this is a good idea work directly for Donald Trump.
Yeah. I just keep thinking.
Trump's trade war is high risk, high reward. But he's not biting his fingernails, staring at the Dow. Today, he actually played golf, which if Biden had done, I definitely wouldn't have criticized him for it.
Obama, it was reported today, played 250 rounds of golf.
Everything's executive order because he doesn't have
enough time because he's playing so much golf. Obama ought to get off the golf course and get down there. I'm going to be working for you. I'm not going to have time to go play golf. He played more golf last year than Tiger Woods. Guy plays more golf than people on the PGA Tour. I love golf. I think it's one of the greats, but I don't have time. If I were in the White House, I don't think I'd ever see Turnberry again. I don't think I'd ever see Doral again. I'm not going to be playing much golf, believe me. If I win this, I'm not going to be playing much golf.